These are 5 artifacts found from cultures around the world. Number 1. In September of 2020, workers in Como, Italy found a Roman amphora in the basement of an abandoned theater, soon to be turned into new apartments. Amphoras are 2-handled jars that were used by ancient Romans to hold things like food, wine, and oils. Those are the items archaeologists expected to find when the workers called them to examine the artifact. Instead, it revealed a buried treasure. When they excavated the amphora, they found hundreds of gold coins inside. To date the coins, experts examined the portraits engraved on the front side. In Imperial Rome, it was customary to put the reigning emperor's image on the front side of the coin. The archaeologists recognized the face of 5 Roman emperors, including that of Valentinian, who ruled right before the fall of the empire, the commonly held date of 474 CE. The main question experts are asking is, how did something this valuable and ancient end up in the basement of an abandoned theater built in 1870? Local historians and a team of experts have a theory. Como traces its roots back to 59 BCE when Julius Caesar founded the town. If you fast forward over 5 centuries, Como was in danger in the mid-470 CE. Germanic tribes were marching towards Italy, intending to sack Rome and any other towns in their path, and this included Como. Experts believe that the coins probably belonged to a wealthy person or a group of affluent Romans trying to hide their funds for safekeeping. Why they or their family never returned to retrieve the money is a mystery. Number 2, Queen Elizabeth's obsidian mirror. These obsidian mirrors sat in the British Museum for years before researchers finally discovered where they came from. All 4 mirrors were owned by Queen Elizabeth I's advisor, John Dee. Dee was a polymath scientist the Queen hired to advise her on New World exploits and scientific questions. In other words, Dee was the Queen's personal scientist and medical advisor. Experts aren't sure exactly how Dee came to possess the obsidian mirrors, but there are records that show that he owned the mirrors before the museum took them in. The mirrors are made from volcanic ash, which means that their contents can be analyzed and compared to other ash samples from around the world. The obsidian matched up with volcanic ash from 2 places in Mexico, including the city of Pachuca. For years, experts have theorized that the mirrors were from Mexico, probably brought back from the Aztecs by Spanish conquerors in the 16th century. And now, even though they had proof, there were still a lot of questions. See, scholars still don't know for sure why the Aztecs made these obsidian mirrors. Experts believe the mirrors inside the British Museum are around 500 years old, which is right around the Spanish conquest of Mexico in 521 CE. One of history's most ruthless explorers was Hernan Cortez, who's known to have commissioned items from Aztec artisans and brought them back to Spain. Scholars think they had religious significance to the Aztecs. If you look closely at the image of the Aztec god Tezcatlipoca, you'll notice these 3 black circles, one his temple, one on his chest, and one on his foot. In Aztec mythology, Tezcatlipoca is the god of divination, causing scholars like Stuart Campbell to suggest that the Aztec used these obsidian mirrors to tell the future. Divination is, of course, the practice of fortune telling. It varies across cultures, but the overall goal is usually the same. Therefore, it's possible worshippers of Tezcatlipoca use these mirrors to help them see the future. Apparently, someone told John Dee about the spiritual background of the mirror, and Stuart says that Dee tried to use these mirrors to communicate with spirits, suggesting that Dee believed that the mirror held some kind of spiritual significance. John Dee was known for his fascination with the occult, so him using the mirror to try and FaceTime with spirits isn't surprising. But the experiments show us more than just the mirror's intended use. It shows us how 16th century intellectuals viewed items from the so-called New World as windows of knowledge to new cultures their governments were conquering. Number 3, a 900-year-old Crusader sword. Shlomi Katzin was diving in the turquoise waters of the Carmel coast of Israel when he stumbled across something out of a fairy tale lying in the sand. It was a 900-year-old 4-foot-long sword, possibly belonging to a knight of the Crusades. After returning to the mainland, Katzin brought his discovery to the Israel Antiquities Authority, who told him what he had found. Even though the sword was covered with shells, as you can see, the IAA could still estimate the sword's age based on its location and shape. Throughout the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church and European kings led invasions of the Holy Land in modern-day Israel to take back land for Christ. The First Crusade launched in the 11th century, making the sword at least 900 years old. Though archaeologists don't know much more than that at the moment, the sword was covered in layers of crustation, making it difficult to gauge any details of it yet. But as scholars peel away the layers of the crusty history, more information on the sword will surely come. Number 4, a wooden canoe found in Wisconsin, at least 1,000 years old. Who knew underwater scooters could help you find a lost Native American artifact? In 2021, 2 divers were riding along the bed of Lake Mendota in Madison, Wisconsin when they discovered a large log jutting up from the bottom of the lake. But upon further investigation, the lake riders realized the log was actually the end of a canoe. Coincidentally, one of the writers, Tamara Thompson, is a marine archaeologist. She investigated the canoe further and eventually decided to pull it out of the lake. The canoe was 27 feet underwater and 15 feet long, so it wasn't easy bringing it up on the surface. But once Tamara did get it on land, she decided to have the canoe carbon dated. Weeks later, the results estimated that the canoe was at least 1,000 years old. Wood doesn't typically survive a millennium, so this canoe is extremely rare. Those who built the canoes were ancestors of the Ho-Chunk Native Americans who primarily live in Wisconsin. They are often referred to as the people of the sacred voice, and they built a canoe in a very specific way, making it easy for experts to identify its origins. What wasn't easy was actually making one of the canoes. State archaeologist Jim Skibbo said the process could take hundreds of hours and required an incredible deal of skill. To construct a canoe, they had to cut down a tree with stone tools, burn the inside of the log, and carve out the crispy bits until the inside resembled what you see here. Skibbo goes on to talk about how truly special this canoe is. He explains that the canoe would have snapped in half if it had absorbed too many sun rays from the surface. Besides being intact, the canoe is the only Ho-Chunk vessel ever found in Wisconsin from that era. Often, these people would bury their canoes in shallow water in winter, only to pull them back up in spring when they were dried out and used again. Number 5, ancient footprints found, New Mexico. We usually don't think about the things we do in our everyday life holding any significance thousands of years from now. The kids who made the groundbreaking footprints found in white sands of New Mexico probably had no idea their walk along a muddy lake shore 21,000 plus years ago would change history. According to a paper published by Science, and to be clear, this is not the methodology, but the actual academic journal, these footprints changed the date we believe humans first arrived in the Americas. Archaeologists say the prints were cast by human teenagers 21,000 to 23,000 years ago in the muddy ground near a lake in modern-day white sands. Before the discovery, scientists assumed the huge ice sheets created walls that blocked passages from Asia to the Americas 21,000 years ago. They estimated that humans first reached the Americas about 13,000 years ago. However, in recent years, scientists have discovered other signs of human life in the Americas up to 20,000 years ago. But how do scientists actually know that the footprints are potentially 23,000 years old? The archaeologists used a unique method. They found rupia grass seeds in layers of sediment around the footprinted layer, then analyzed the seeds using radiocarbon dating to determine the footprints to be 21,000 to 23,000 years old. Scholars are still debating the evidence. Only time will tell if our migration timeline will be affected, but the discovery is still remarkable nonetheless.